In this video, we're going to show you how to make this darling advent calendar. I've always wanted to design one. I just wasn't sure how I could do all those pockets, and this is a really cool technique. Now, it comes with several options to do for each pocket. This one has 25 references, scripture references of different names for Jesus Christ. And then what's fun to do with the kids is you read one each day when you pull it out, and then at the end of the time on Christmas you have a contest to see who remembers the most of those names, and then there can be a prize at the end. The pattern also comes with not only his names but his miracles and then also his teachings with the scripture reference. So this can be every year something different, and will bring Christ back into your Christmas. It also has a different child is born for the header if you would rather have that. So this video will really show you how fun it is to quilt this out. It looks complicated, but it's not. 1 yard of fabric, 45 inches wide, I can make 2 advent calendars. Now you can do 1 advent calendar with a half yard. I just like having this extra fabric and making 2 so that I don't run into problems hooping and not having enough fabric, but it can be done. Then I folded it in half down to the 45. Then I folded it again so I knew where the halfway mark and the middle of that halfway mark is. From there, I used my quilting ruler and made horizontal lines across, keeping them perpendicular to the fold. Then I kept going with 2-inch rows, then 2 inches across. This is also a great way to know exactly where you're going to, on the other side, place your interfacing, and make sure your interfacing is really secure. Either it's an iron-on or really well sprayed on, because you don't want that to move. You really want that support in this fabric. Then you're going to be just machine embroidering 1 row at a time, and then each embroidered row needs 2 squares to finish the pocket. So you're going to fold it up like this, and when they're all done you're just going to stitch up the sides of the pocket, and that's how you're going to make all your pockets. So there's 5 machined pockets on each row, and there's 5 rows. So with each one needing 3, that's 15 times 5, so you've got 75 pockets. And then I put like a 2-inch header at the top, so I marked that out too so that it has the interfacing included. Now if you have a large hoop, you can do the 1 row at a time. If you only have a medium hoop, then the pattern comes with the ability to machine embroider 2 pockets, then 1 pocket, and then 2 pockets. So you can do it with a smaller hoop too. It works just fine, just a little more thread changing, right? I use a fine point disappearing ink for marking this quilt, and of course you can use it for the squares. Just you'll have to hurry and stitch it out, or remark it, of course, if it disappears, right? Now I'm going to mark the center of this row. Remember, keeping these 2 not stitched. Those 2 make the pocket for that row. And then I just take my ruler and go corner to corner, go across, corner to corner, go across, so I have the middle marked. Then in the pattern it gives you a tailor tack for this center of the block. So when you're hooping your hoop, you just make sure that fabric is placed so that all of these line up to be in the center of your hoop, or where it's showing on your hoop. And then for sure your little wreath, and it's hugs and kisses, right? It's pretty cute, but they'll be centered on that square. In the stitch out, the first sequence is a very dark green, and it will also stitch out a couple of the numbers. Then I'll switch threads to a light green, and the better the contrast, the cooler these pine boughs look. Then the third change out is red for the berries and the other numbers. Each row is finished. then I can take and fold at the top of each embroidered row and bring it to the next embroidered row, and this is going to come up like that and like that, and it just is so cool. Now I'm going to take some white thread and I'm going to sew right up the in between the pockets and on the outside. Then I'll take my ruler and cut all the way around, leaving 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to cut along this top too, leaving 1/4 of an inch all the way around, and then I'm ready to put the borders on it. Now I've added my border and I've layered it with batting and my backing, and of course you make those wider because you're going to put your binding on and you want that batting to be in your binding, and we'll show you that. Now I've included in this pattern a beautiful design for quilting the border, but it's hard to get your hoop to be secure like this unless you use a lot of fabric, waste a lot of fabric to get it out to the edges. So what I do is just sew on some scrap fabric and I baste it so it's easy to take off, and that way when I hoop it, I can get that border right down the middle and it's caught tight. We have finished quilting our border, and then we're going to do our binding. Remember how I said earlier that you keep the back and the batting longer than your front, and we're going to show you why that is. You cut binding strips that are the double the width of the binding. You want it to be finished, and then 1/2 inch or 2/4 inch for the 2 seams. Then you will, before you've done this, you've made sure your quilt top is square and straight, and then you're going to lay it along that edge, sew your 1/4 of an inch. Then at that point you're going to cut exactly the width of the binding that you want it to be finished, and press it. It will look great, and then you're going to turn it, the binding up like that to cover the back, and then 1/4 of an inch under and hand stitch that fold right there, and I'll cut all these little tails so the back will look really nice. I've added a sleeve on the back, 2 sleeves, and that's just a piece of fabric that's finished on the edges. So the one edge into your binding and the other end is, this edge is blind stitched down, just going through one layer, and that way you can put a rod through it and hang it on the wall. This just turns out great. Come to our website and download the pattern. It comes in all the different languages of brands of machines, and I think this will become a family heirloom to remember to every year. Thanks for watching.